take some time, and I want to try to introduce you to an organization I originally started a few years ago, but after I started, I was able to accomplish a little bit. I was under such an attack from the government and the Islamic wing of our federal government to basically shut me up and stop me. I'm still trying to recover from that, but I want to move ahead and get this thing off the ground, because it was time for it a few years ago, but now we're going to need to get busy. As Christians, we share the responsibility for our brothers and sisters, especially in the areas where they're in danger. So I'm going to explain to you what happened after I kicked this off, and the things that I had been able to accomplish before I was struggling just to survive. And then I'm going to make another video, and I'm going to explain briefly what the plan is and what we need, and ask for volunteers, people to join, and also for people to pray about providing material or the funds that we're going to need to operate. The plan is for Christian Rescue to operate under the old principles of nonprofit, which is to restrain how much we're able to pay people involved. Nowadays, you'll see nonprofits pay out $1 million payrolls, whereas not very long ago, the law was that a nonprofit was not allowed to pay out more than $60,000 a year to any individual involved. After they changed that law, cities' costs went up, university educational costs went up, medical costs went through the roof, and all that residual profit that the hospitals did have that they used to pay for the uninsured all of a sudden shifted and went into salaries, and people without insurance had to go without care. And that one change really it basically destroyed our country, and we went from being a nation of service to a nation of greed, because there's not one part of our lives that's not touched by a nonprofit, from hospitals to city management to pharmaceutical companies to churches. And then with the change of that law, we started seeing the rise of the mega church and the feel-good ministries. But let me get back to Christian Rescue. Christian Rescue, I had started because of the growing persecution around the world on our brothers and sisters. I had formed the company, and I went on television and did an interview, and then I started being watched. After that, I started watching and doing a study on how Islam was spreading over in North Africa, to help me formulate my plans for how to help. And the thing that I noticed, and I wrote a little report which I started sending out to the leaders of the countries in Africa that were on the border of the rise of the Islamic territory there. The thing that I started to realize was that slowly they would move in and build a mosque, and then once they had a mosque, they had a foothold, and according to Islamic law, they claimed that nation. They'd start inviting people to Islam, and if you so much as said no to them, they would list you as insulting Islam. So they'd write down and keep a list of these people in these small towns. They would keep a list of anybody that insulted them, denied Islam, or spoke of any other faith. And once they got a little list together, they'd write a letter to Saudi Arabia, to the leader of their faith. The leader in Saudi Arabia, under the blessing of the king and their family, and with funding, would declare an intifada against that country. And then over the next few months, young Islamic radical fighters would migrate to that country. They would link up and they would form a unit. The next step was that they would go to the town that had written the letter, and they'd send one or two people in to talk to the leader at the mosque. They'd tell him that, okay, on this day we're going to come in to the city and deal with the problem of those that insult Islam. So you'd see reports in the news of people that would wake up early in the morning, 3 and 4 in the morning, and they would say that, look, when I woke up, all the Muslims had packed up all their stuff and they were leaving town. And they couldn't figure out why. Well, about sunrise, the town would be surrounded, and these radical Muslim fighters would come in. They'd drag everybody into the street. Then they'd bring in the leader of the mosque and a few of the people that had reported on people that denied them, refused them, or maybe just said something derogatory. They'd point out those individuals, they'd drag them into the street, and they'd execute them. Then the radicals would say, look, we're gonna come back, and when we come back, anybody that has refused Islam is going to die. So you'd see whole towns convert to Islam overnight, and then once they had a few towns like that, they had a base for their radicalism, and they'd start spreading into the nation. Now, the other thing I noticed as I watched is this was with the full blessing of the UN, because once Islam had risen enough to cause problems throughout a whole country, the UN would wait for the leader to beg for the UN to come in and establish control. And this is how the UN would spread into a region. When the UN would arrive, they'd go in and they'd start disarming all the people. They would take a few representatives from each side of the revolt, the Muslims and the other side, the nation side. And they'd listen to their grievances, and the UN would sit down and say, look, here's the new constitution for your country. We're putting people in charge that answer to the UN, and they were establishing United Nations control after Islam would move into an area and reap havoc and basically destroy lives and a nation. So both of them were benefiting from the relationship, Islam and the UN. And it was being used by Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia was funding it to spread their control throughout the world and their goal of global Islam. So once I had figured this out, I started writing to the leaders of the countries there in Africa and giving them that little paper that I'd written about how Islam was coming in. Some people listened. Well, one country ended up getting a Muslim president. They lost their Christian president. Another country outlawed Islam and they destroyed the mosque, and which was the sensible thing to do. But while I was doing that, all of a sudden I noticed all of my I was having problems communicating. I was not able to communicate overseas. My internet was off a lot, and I was being followed and harassed by our government because they had the federal government can say anything about you in order to get local authorities to climb on you. You're not the boss of me. Let me finish. That's my dog. And that's basically what happened, and I left a few doors open for them. But then after I'd accomplished a little bit, I was trying to establish contacts around the areas where Islam was in control to establish a Christian Underground Railroad. I had established contact with several pastors, but then I was under such an attack that I had to drop everything, and it was just basic survival. It basically destroyed our lives because I ended up, it cost me probably $10,000 in the past few years just to survive medically because of the attacks that I was under. But that's basically where I was. Now, I want you to listen to the next video because that's the most important. It lays out a plan. I can't tell you everything because a lot of it would be just detrimental to our whole process, everything we want to do, to tell you everything. But I'm going to tell you some of the stuff. Some of the stuff I have to clear through the government to make sure we don't cross any lines and infringe on any of their tactics and stuff. But please listen to the next one. Pray for us, the Christian Rescue Coalition. Pray about being involved. If you have a certain skill, we need graphic artists, we need marketers, we need Arab Christians to write for us and program for us and vet people online and communicate, and so we want to set up a large operation with the facility for marketing one side. The other side would be communicating with our brothers and sisters overseas in areas where they might be in danger. Another area, logistics, people in charge of communicating with areas and logistics, and then we want to hire a few units of retired special operations people to work along with our government in trying to get people out of areas where they're in severe danger. But please check us out, pray for us. God bless you all, and thank you for watching.